Welcome back, Yappers, to episode 18 of Team Yap, the Pokémon podcast. I am your co-host, Chris Levelette.
I am your other co-host, Emily Brewer.
And this time we are bringing you a special episode of the Team Yap podcast that we have been teasing for a while, been talking about, and been wanting to do. And to help us, we have a special guest, our resident film expert,
Steven Heron.
Oh, okay. Am I your first guest?
Yes.
You are our first official guest.
I strong-armed my way to this. I'm very proud.
Always intended to have you join us as a guest for this episode.
I planted the seed. I do have to say I did.
You definitely did.
Yeah.
And
you gave out the Detective Pikachu idea, and then it was like, all right, he's got to join in for it now.
Yeah.
But it took a long time for that seed to grow because we've been talking about this for like months, I feel like.
Basically since the show started.
I was about to say, like, since the inception, I'm pretty sure it was an idea that was floated.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we made it happen.
Absolutely,
came to fruition. It was really fun.
How many of these have been movie reviews as well? Because I know you did the first movie.
Yep.
We did the
I remember.
So this is the fourth.
So we did the first movie. Did we do the second movie? Or was it a different movie altogether?
We did because we
1, 2, 3.
We did
in
Pokemon
order.
2000.
Yeah.
And now we've jumped to
Detective Pikachu.
Detective Pikachu, which is like completely different.
It's not in the lineup. It's its own beast.
I forgot who it was, but there was some review at the time of Pokemon, the first movie, and it was, this adult film critic who had no connection to this child's franchise. Pokemon, the first movie, a title that is a threat.
Because he didn't want any more.
No, I got him anyway.
Dude, I liked that movie. See,
I loved it as a kid. Yeah.
The thing about, so the way that we went about watching this movie was,
It also has a lot of connections to this one, which is...
it totally does.
true. Yeah,
like,
that's true.
And which is really like fitting.
Yeah.
But the way that this came about for us was we gathered the staff who wanted to join us and we watched it together.
Yep.
And so people's knowledge of Pokemon ranged from literally 0 to like 100%.
Yeah.
And so that was a really cool experience to see. And it reminded me a little bit of like, and I'm going to get yelled at for this. It reminded me of the Minecraft movie.
I don't think that's an unfair
fair.
comparison.
But I'll tell you what, it was way better than the Minecraft movie in the sense that they were both trying to get an audience of people that understood the franchise really well and people who had no fucking idea what Minecraft or Pokemon is.
Yeah.
Right.
Detective Pikachu did a way better job at crafting a compelling storyline within that world of Pokemon than Minecraft did.
Yeah.
Because the storyline within the Minecraft movie was really bad.
Well, it's interesting. I have yet to see the Minecraft
Yeah.
movie. I'm very glad that it's done. Gangbusters. I like. It's a big family movie that seems to have a good heart.
Yes.
And
I saw it twice in the movies. So.
I mean, it brought a big crowd. I don't love the whole like we're going to yell at the entire movie culture that surrounds it, but I'm hoping that it's just sort of a one-off.
Yes.
But I think the Minecraft movie had a similar problem that like the Lego movie did going into it, where it's like, how do you make a narrative out of this? The whole point of Minecraft is like you live, you're trying to survive.
And you can do whatever the hell you want.
And you build resources, and so there's, it has its own weird mythology and logic. But Pokemon, at least it was like, okay, there's a clear world. Humans and animal monsters live in harmony.
Yep.
And I think we'll talk more about the choice of doing Detective Pikachu specifically rather than doing we're adapting Red Blue or the Indigo League in live action. But I think I agree with you. I thought it was a really fun screening. Thank you guys for organizing it. But I think it was like everyone enjoyed it for different reasons. And I think this sort of like mystery narrative, as basic as it is, gave it like an in to the people who had no experience, whereas Minecraft is just like, there's blocks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it totally lent itself to that. And I guess for me, so I had never seen the movie. Chris and Steve had seen the movie before.
Yep.
Because I want to dive into that.
Yeah.
Especially with your Pokemon super fandom.
Reaction.
So I was thinking about this a little bit. I was like, why did I never see the movie? It came out in 2019.
Going back. Pre-pandemic.
2019. That hit me in a sweet spot where I wasn't super into Pokemon. Was like obsessed with it as a kid. And then around the age of like 15-ish, when did Sun and Moon come out?
That, I believe, was like 2017, 2016.
Okay. Yeah, so like 15, 16, I kind of fell off on Pokemon. And then, you know, it was revived a little bit with Pokemon Go coming out in 2016.
You had that initial novelty.
Exactly. And then, you know, I've mentioned this before many times, but when I moved up here for college in 2018, I picked up the game again because it was such a like great area to be playing Pokemon Go.
Yeah. Right.
But that was so short-lived. And so then 2019, of course, you know, I'm mid college, like I'm,
You're
you know, I'm not thinking about Pokemon really.
You're experiencing what is the natural evolution of what nerdy fandoms used to be. Is that you kind of grew out of it, and then you reached a point past growing out of it where you start to actually feel nostalgia for it.
Absolutely.
Whereas now these nerd fandoms and these franchises are designed to keep you in for life.
That's so interesting to think about.
Yeah.
Because and then clearly, I mean, I've been back into being really into Pokemon since about 2022, and really what sparked that was Pokemon Go yet again. But then I, you know, with the Switch games, started playing Legends Arceus, which, as everybody knows, favorite Pokemon game. Pokemon Violet, and was obsessed with Pokemon Go, and so I had always kind of I always knew in the back of my head, I was like, I missed out by not watching Detective Pikachu, because it was like younger me would have like lost my shit over that movie. But then it like, as I got like a little bit further and further away from that like premiere of it, I like knew of it in the back of my head, would see stuff about it on the internet. Never got spoiled, like never. And so it was kind of like the perfect like storm for me to never have seen it and then be really excited to watch it, you know, a couple weeks ago.
It's like it's a new release all over again.
It totally was.
You're tapping into the exact thing that why I wanted to do this episode to begin with. It's all going according to plan. One of the main things that I find fascinating about Detective Pikachu, it was well received. Both by like critics and fans. It wasn't like a huge critical hit, but people are like, thumbs up. You know, this totally works. Well received. Did pretty well at the box office. Has kind of been completely memory hold in the almost 6 years since it's released. No one really talks about it, and I think part of the reason is, and we'll talk more, is like, why this did do well. It didn't make $1 billion the way that Hollywood wants things to, and in this, you know, past decade or so. But it did do well, and it was just like, I think part of it, it was like, if there's not constantly new iterations of the same thing being fed to you, it just kind of gets lost, because there's just so much stuff that gets released now.
Yep. Which is like, let's dive into that a little bit. Like, was it like the year that it came out? Like, what was the reasoning behind that?
I think it's a multi-pronged thing. 2019 was a huge year for movies in general, and there was this general discussion of, you know, every movie decade is defined by a certain thing, and 2019 is the end of the 2010s. People will get persnickety and say that the 0 year is actually the last year of a decade, and we're not going to talk about that. 0 year is the first year of a decade. The 2019, we're closing out the 2010s, and the 2010s were really dominated by two things. One is the rise of streaming. The other is utter Disney dominance. If you look at Disney buys Marvel in 2009, the first of the MCU movies to actually be released by Disney is The Avengers. They buy in 2012. They buy Star Wars that same year. You know, they continue to expand and grow upon their things. They went through a wave where they started making sequels to their Pixar movies finally, because they had full ownership of Pixar by that point. And because animated movies take so long to come out, there was like that sort of amazing golden sweet spot of Ratatouille, WALL-E, and Up, who were the three movies made by Pixar when they thought that their Disney deal was over. So they had these three original movies, and then immediately after that, it's like Toy Story 3, Cars 2, Monsters University. Like the first thing under full Disney ownership was a series of sequels. You know, the year before Detective Pikachu comes out is Incredibles 2. And 2019, Toy Story 4. And then you have Toy Story 4, you have Frozen 2, you have Rise of Skywalker, Avengers Endgame, my God, Avengers Endgame. Yep. So you have all these Disney things in their most dominant decade, all sort of coming to a close, and they're having their final chapters, and they're launching the streaming service, and people are like, popular culture as we know it right now is kind of ending in a weird way. It's in a weird pivot point, and the 2020s are going to be interesting.
Yeah.
And then a global pandemic happened.
Yep.
And I think Detective Pikachu 2 was in development.
I didn't know that.
I think they were vaguely developing it. You know, it was like, you know, at the very least, Warner Brothers was interested in making more Pokemon stuff, continuing that partnership.
Was Detective Pikachu a Warner Brothers film?
Well, now we're getting into a whole other territory. Any big blockbuster you see, for the most part, has weird financiers. The major studios rarely, if ever, fully finance a movie anymore. In fact, it's very minimal. A lot of times they're picking something up, you know, things. It was like, you know, a production company like Legendary, which made Minecraft, which has sort of their own. It was like, we've made this deal with a bank to guarantee a certain amount. Can you guarantee the next amount plus distribution? And I'm not a business major. Yeah. So there's all these tendrils that like I have a vague awareness of, but like there's a lot of fingers in any given pie when you go to see like a big Hollywood blockbuster for the most part, with few exceptions. And I think it was a combination of like Detective Pikachu doing well. It was profitable, but it didn't make that sweet billion.
Yep.
Especially internationally. I don't think it did as well internationally as they were expecting. And part of that might be its weird Americanized, like, film noir narrative that's put onto it. And the global pandemic happening and a lot of things just getting reprioritized and shifted and delayed. And also film production, as much as we talk about the amount of content that we get is still absurd. Film and television production is still not at the level as it was before the pandemic.
Totally.
Between the pandemic and then, you know, soon after that, the two major strikes that we had in 2023. We're still feeling the effects of that 2 years later.
Yeah.
And, you know, you have Ryan Reynolds, this big star, who is kind of your biggest draw outside of the Pokemon brand in general, and he has other things going on. And if it falls to the back of his, you know, priorities, you know, things turn style. And then it was just like, you know, at this point, what we talked about was like Detective Pikachu was a movie that was well liked, but not really remembered, having not even come out a decade ago. And it's just like, are there other things that we can do to prioritize the brand? And especially for the Pokemon company, which is the most successful entertainment franchise in the world, when they're making billions on plushies. Is it even worth like trying to, you know, do the bare minimum? And it was like, instead, can we focus on sort of more interesting things like Pokemon Concierge and what are some of the other things coming out? I know they have the CGI movies.
Of course, and they still have the anime coming out.
Yeah, the anime is their machine.
Let's see. So in terms of like media, or rather like shows, I think it's so it's like Concierge. I think is still.
Yeah,
they
just
I
got a season 2, right?
Yes, that was in the Pokemon Presents.
Yeah.
It's so interesting because I always think of the video games as their bread and butter, but
it's like a fraction of their actual profit.
It totally is.
And I know there's pockets of the fandom. It was like, for the amount of money that Pokemon makes, you would think these games would look better.
I know, yeah.
Well, because like I always say, you have the three big things, which is like the media, so the anime, the movies, which I don't think there is any movies on the horizon at the moment.
Not that I'm aware of, but I'm not tuned into that.
Horizon, funny, because that's the current anime, I believe, is Pokemon Horizons, or at least was one of the recent ones.
And even like the manga has been going for like the entire...
still going? I haven't heard
I think they update it with every new iteration. I think it basically follows whatever the show is.
Well, and that one, it's always like actually new characters. And but it seems like they finally did that with the anime. So, and then, of course, the games and... the cards, which have been insane lately, but are probably going down soon.
Yeah, well, that's a good thing. But you know,
toys and T-shirts and
I mean, people will literally travel to Japan, build their whole vacations around going to Japan to buy Pokemon merch.
Oh,
Go to the Pokemon Center.
And now, and then they do weird stuff now. Like there's some traveling Pokemon exhibit that is like going to science museums around the world.
The fossil
There's a
thing.
fossil museum next year in Chicago.
Right?
Yeah.
We're going, by the way.
Because I think it started in Japan, is now finally coming to the U.S. and like you mentioned, Chicago. So yeah, weird stuff like that you wouldn't even think about. There's no Pokemon like theme park presence, right? Not even in Japan. Not yet.
I'm very surprised by that.
Is there really not?
I don't think so.
Interesting.
Like, I don't even
you've got
like
Pokemon.
I would imagine if there was going to be anything,
like,
it would be like Universal Japan, but
yeah.
That would make sense. That would make a lot of sense. Well,
But I don't
because
know.
it's also complicated because like the Pokemon company is sort of a shell corporation that is really 3 different companies' interests combined into one thing.
And then, owned by Nintendo.
Well, then the Nintendo thing only ever got expanded into theme parks just recently.
With all like the Super Mario stuff that they've been putting out and whatnot. But yeah, I mean, it is fascinating. Like, but when you put it that way, like about like just like thinking about the plushies and stuff like that, why would you spend money on hiring this big name actor, all of these people, designing all these sets, putting out another movie when you can just make another Charizard plushie?
Yeah.
Like,
unless you want, I mean, the argument to it is like you you make another investment into your brand, not to get all capitalist about it, but that's the way these people think.
Absolutely.
And so it was like, now you can have specifically Detective Pikachu plushies. And I think they made plushies that looked more like the sort of photoreal version of Pikachu in this movie. And so like you're creating a new like wave, like a new pocket.
A new in for more people.
Yeah.
Well, and I'd love to go back on something that you brought up, which is why Detective Pikachu and not Red and Blue.
Yeah.
And it's so fascinating to me because I personally have never played Detective Pikachu, the original or the reboot.
No, same. Because I actually don't think I've watched gameplay.
It was not when the movie got announced. It had not been released in America yet. I remember when Detective Pikachu got announced in Japan because people were like, "What is this game?" And then when the movie got announced, it was a real sort of head scratching. It was like, "That's the in you're going for with your Pokemon movie."
Yeah.
When I think everyone, the obvious thing was like, "Well, you do the Ash Ketchum
adventure.
thing.
You do the thing."
And I guess I can say this now. I am still pretty convinced at some point in the next 10 years there will be a huge streaming or HBO live action Pokemon show that is basically Red Blue or Indigo League. I think that's not out of. I think it depends on how much the Pokemon company believes that will boost the brand.
Sure.
Another thing I thought about while watching Pokemon Detective Pikachu is that I'm shocked that there are not Japanese live action Pokemon movies.
That's a good point.
How is this the first one?
Because it is a Japanese franchise. It's the anime is made in Japan and then it's localized and translated into other languages. And Japan has its very own thriving industry. I mean, you look at something like people talk about Godzilla -1 that came out in late 2024 or late 2023, and people are like, "How does this look better than Hollywood movies and it cost a tenth of the cost?" And the answer is they exploit their labor, their animation labor. But you could make a Hollywood caliber Pokemon movie at the visual level of an American one, but I think the brand has always been so globally successful that Hollywood in other foreign markets seem more legitimate than their own domestic film industries. Which is
it is fascinating because you would think that they would capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And it kind of brings me a little bit back to Detective Pikachu itself. And I do think one of the reasons why other than like it hit me in that perfect time where it's like I didn't necessarily like want to go see that movie. The animation threw me off a little bit. Like the photorealistic style of the Pokemon that they decided to go with turned me off a little bit. I was like, what?
And I do think
is this?
like, there's a pocket of people that are right there with you. It's sort of the uncanny valley thing of it.
Because there's some that look really good, but then there's some that are like Gengar.
Gengar is horrifying. Yeah.
The Flareon, or however he said it.
Yeah.
Well, Pikachu is super cute. Like
Pikachu is adorable.
They put their money into Pikachu.
Yeah.
I also think Pikachu kind of is more translatable
into
just
that
based
style.
on.
Yeah, for
though
sure.
it is funny, it wasn't until the movie I was like, of course Pikachu is fluffy. I never would have thought about that because I'm just so used to
smooth.
like the
You're
outline.
always just seeing the 2D designs, and so you just think, oh, all of these are smooth.
Yeah, exactly.
Smooth boys.
Yeah.
And so I will say that watching the movie did change my opinion on that, because it made more sense to me, like as it went on. I was like, no, this is how they should have done this, because any other way I think would have been a little bit.
Because that's to bring it back to the Minecraft movie, that's what the Minecraft movie looks like.
Yeah.
The llamas are fluffy. Everything still has that weird blocky shape, but they didn't go further into that pixelated thing. Whereas the Lego movie, the Lego movies, they're CG animated movies, but they're animated to look
like Lego pieces.
Actually act like the toys.
To look like we just did a stop motion movie with... which I think is a choice. I think it works better for Pokemon than it does for Minecraft, just from what I've seen from the dozens of trailers that have come out. I do agree with you. There are some where it's like, they can't all be winners.
It's true.
It's going to be hard to translate all of them. But I think for the most part, they look phenomenal.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. Yeah. And well, I was watching a recap before we did this, and I was like, oh, my God, like, even the Snorlax, like, and again, going back to the Fluffy, it's like, they all have hair. Yes. Like, what is this? Yeah. But it's just, like, they're so adorable. They look really good, except for some of the outliers, which for me, the one that disturbed me the most was the Lickitung.
That's fair. Yep.
See, I think it is an excellent execution. It's just that's going to be one of the Pokemon that's going to be nearly impossible.
Yeah. Absolutely.
The fleshiness of it is going to inherently sort of make your teeth.
And you just made it worse by saying fleshiness.
But it's so true. Like you can't get away with that.
Some are kind of just meant to be unsettling, and I still think Gengar was just ugly.
Yeah, it's true. Now, well, here's the thing. Like, so none of us have played the game. Like, I don't know anything about the Detective Pikachu game.
Anything I know from the game is from an interview with two of the screenwriters that I listened to. I re-listened to after our rewatch.
Now, did the screen what I heard is it's very loosely based on the game.
Loosely based, but there are more details in it. Like Rhyme City is the location.
Okay.
Yep.
And it is a world where like humans and Pokemon. And it's one of the reasons they said it was like, they didn't come up with the idea of doing Detective Pikachu. This was something they were hired for.
Sure.
But they said it did give us the benefit. It was like, we didn't really have to deal with like the Pokeball of it all.
Yeah.
Pokemon just sort of exist out there. And
I think that was a very good choice.
And,
I agree.
And I think that's one of the decisions why they went for it. Outside of it was like, well, this has more of a narrative.
Yeah.
This is more of a narrative-based game, whereas, all the other Pokemon games, it's essentially you're working your way through a tournament, even if it's not officially that way. It was like you're going from city to city.
Yes.
And you're battling people, and once you've accomplished everything you can do, you move on to the next thing until...
Right.
Which is to say, like, I agree with you before when you were saying you foresee, like, a live-action series on HBO or something later on. That format definitely works a lot better for a full series
television.
rather than one movie.
Yeah, which is why the anime has been so successful.
Yeah.
You can tell a little pocket narrative and then move on to the next thing.
Exactly. In the full arc of, the whole storyline.
Yeah.
This is so off topic, but
Love it.
I would love, because I'm thinking, like we were talking about, well, it's not that off topic, the logistics of like a movie versus a series.
Yeah.
And then it made me think of like, okay, well, what other Pokemon games are out there? And I loved playing Pokemon Ranger.
Okay.
And I also loved Pokemon Mystery Dungeon.
Mm-hmm.
I think you could do a lot with a Pokemon Mystery Dungeon movie.
Oh, give me a Mystery Dungeon movie, please.
Because then you can fully animate that because there aren't any humans.
Right.
Yeah.
And you could find a narrative to fit into a movie or multiple movies.
Absolutely. And I mean, again, for most of the game, you're just like in a dungeon and you're walking around, you're picking up items and you're fighting Pokemon. But like, think about it, Monster House, the Kecleons, like you could have so much like storylines with that. Pokemon Ranger would be harder because Pokemon Ranger is so DS based with the stylus and you're just like circling the Pokemon trying to catch it. But then you're basically, you could do it tactfully because then your storyline is, you know, you're solving these like problems, and these Pokemon are helping you. But I think for the purpose of this movie, I think they made a really good choice to do Detective Pikachu for multiple reasons. And like you said before, the fact, like, I mean, people love a good mystery. Yeah. Like, that's why mystery books are so popular. Yeah. That's why mystery movies are so popular. Like, I will say this, and I have this in my notes. Like, I am, when it comes to movies, TV shows, whatever, I will almost never guess a plot twist.
Yeah.
I will almost never know what's going to happen. And I'm really gullible. And so if you tell me that Roger is the bad guy,
you're gonna be like,
okay, Roger's the bad guy, bro. Yeah. Oh, I trust this old man. Like, yeah. You know, how could he do this to his poor old father?
To kill that guy. Yeah. Damn.
Yeah. And so for me, the plot twist of the movie with the father, Howard Clifford, the creator of Rhyme City, being the bad guy.
Yeah.
Came out, well, it didn't come out of nowhere, but I was like, oh my God, really? And same goes for the whole twist of Pikachu being his father. Uh-huh. Like, I mean, there were so many clues there where it was like, okay, we never see his face, like all this stuff. And I'm like, I had no idea.
Yeah.
And that's where, for me, it's like, so when I get spoiled on something, and I think this is true for a lot of people. That's why people hate spoilers.
Yeah.
But it totally it ruins the experience. It absolutely does. And so, like, if I had gone into that movie, never seeing it before, but knew because of the internet that Pikachu was his dad, that would have been a whole other viewing experience for me.
I'm sorry, just thinking of the sentence "Pikachu was his dad" out of context really tickles me.
It's, you know,
Pikachu was his dad.
It's crazy that there's a $150 million movie where the denouement is Pikachu was my dad all along.
And but I mean, that being said, I do think they did a really good job with hiding it, kind of.
Yeah.
Maybe for people that are like me who don't, because when I'm watching a movie, and I'm curious, like, I mean, you are the resident film guy here. Like, you've seen so many movies. Like, when I watch a movie, and you know, I think about, like, you know, my boyfriend, like, he figures this shit out like so quickly because he's like, his brain is analyzing it.
Yeah.
I'm not. I'm just like watching the movie, and that's why these things, I think, come up for me and like surprise me more than other people. But part of it is like, I don't want to figure out the twist.
No.
Like, I want that revealed to me, and I want to be like, holy fuck.
Yeah.
Pikachu was his dad, you know, like. And so, for me, I really enjoyed it in that sense. And I'm also regretting not seeing it in the movie theater. Gosh, love seeing a movie in the movie theater.
Nothing better.
Nothing better.
Nothing better.
And that's a whole nother tangent we can go on with, like, you know, because the Minecraft movie is already streaming, like, you know.
I saw Detective Pikachu in theaters. That was the one time I saw it.
Okay. Yeah. Did you see it in theaters or you saw it afterwards?
I saw it after the fact.
Okay. Yep. And I always had this weird sense of guilt.
I love that I'm the most casual Pokemon fan out of all of us, and I was the only one who saw it. Opening weekend. I think probably, well,
because you must have played Pokemon when you were younger.
Yeah. I mean, I loved the anime, the Indigo League anime, which was still in reruns when we were younger, and also I had hand-me-downs of a bunch of the VHS tapes of the episodes. I'm the youngest cousin. I'm on my dad's side of the family. I'm the youngest sibling. I'm the youngest kid in my neighborhood, so I got a lot of hand-me-down stuff. So I have so much 90s, mid to late 90s popular culture and nostalgia, even though that's not an era I technically grew up in, because like I was still consuming that stuff because it was just handed to me.
Right.
That's what happens when you're the baby.
Yeah, exactly. And then, you know, I collected the cards for a little bit, but didn't really play. I think you mentioned this in the previous episodes. We would essentially play like war.
Yes.
You know, whatever
the
CP
HP
was
number,
the highest.
Exactly.
You know, I was like, that's the winner.
Yep.
And I didn't play that many of the video games. My brother I still have my brother's translucent purple Game Boy Color. and his copy of Pokemon Yap.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
So that is the Pokemon game I have played the most.
Okay.
In fact, when I studied abroad in Dublin, I brought that Game Boy with me.
Oh my God,
to play it on
I love
trains
that.
and stuff.
Hell yeah.
And but I didn't have that many Nintendo. I had a DS, I had a Wii.
Yep.
But I don't think I had any Pokemon games for either.
Wow. Okay.
I later played, things like Pokemon Snap in situations where like people had an old N64 and things like that. But like the two Pokemon games I played the most is Pokemon Yellow and Pokemon Go.
Yep.
So interesting.
But also I'm like a nerd and I have nerdy dork friends.
And so you know all about it.
So like it's the cultural osmosis.
Yes.
Of
it's impossible to go throughout life and like not know something about Pokemon.
Yeah.
True.
Like even
or at least because I think the other benefit of making this Detective Pikachu is that every single person on the planet basically at least knows who Pikachu is.
Yeah, I mean if they're not already interchanging the word Pokemon with Pikachu.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
It's like old people who call all video games Nintendo.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. Exactly.
Everything's a Game Boy.
Yes. So that's so fascinating to me because it does speak to the sense that when you're of a certain age and of a certain like nerdy demographic, you are just going to absorb information through osmosis in that sense. And part of it too is like when I went through that phase of like not actively playing Pokemon games, like I would still like buy cute Pokemon things or buy Pokemon cards here and there because I liked Pokemon. Yeah. I just wasn't super into it. And it just goes to show the grip that this fucking company has on my wallet.
That's another thing with Pokemon that they kind of have the Sanrio thing where it's like they have all these different characters effectively that can fit for
and they're just cute
for so many different people.
You don't need to play the games.
Exactly. You don't need to know what's going on.
Exactly.
You don't need to know what's going on here. I got a cool dragon.
Right.
That's all that matters.
Right. Well, you think about all those kids wearing little kids wearing Pokemon shirts. Like half of them probably have never even played the game, watched the show, whatever. And their parents are just like, "Oh, here's a cute little boy shirt," Like, so it's so interesting because it is, and like same with little girls. It's like, okay, like here's a Hello Kitty shirt. Like I guarantee you've never seen a Sanrio like TV show or any. I don't even know what Sanrio has for stuff, but it's. Again, the grip that has on people's wallet. Yeah. Cinnamon roll one.
Well, isn't Gudamame also Sanrio technically? Yeah. Gudadama, yeah.
Yep. Yes, it totally is. Yeah. And that has its own
well, I
following.
Think the other benefit that Pokemon has had is that it's a pretty gender neutral.
Yes.
Because everything, I talk about this a lot with my friends, especially when it comes to, movies and film collecting, like physical media. I buy Blu-rays. Mm-hmm. I'm addicted to buying Blu-rays, I should say, and things like that. And it was like, you can always tell, like the things that tend to get like the most special editions, it's like, it's boy stuff because there was like, there are women who collect physical media, but it's a much more niche part of a now niche demographic. It's a niche hobby now to begin with. But it was like, so in all of our multimedia stuff, as much as we talk about, the dissolving of gender essentialism, like there's still definitely that divide between boy stuff and girl stuff, which is why something like Barbie is kind of a big deal when Girl Thing is the #1 highest grossing film of a
Absolutely.
year.
Yeah. That's so true.
But Pokemon, it was like everyone loves cute things. Right. I do think it skews more boy just because the like male thing,
the creature collecting and battling,
collecting, and also just like I must own everything is definitely a male instinct.
What do you mean?
But cute animal definitely appeals to little girls, and I think they have smartly capitalized it. It's why Jigglypuff has always been pushed for the entire, and why Jigglypuff is only in one scene of Detective Pikachu, but is featured heavily in all the trailers. The shot of Jigglypuff is one of the images that's burned in my brain because it was in every single trailer.
Oh, that is fascinating.
But is only in that one scene. It's basically in 3 shots.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, that opens a whole nother can of worms about trailers versus movies, and
and their honesty or lack thereof.
Yeah. So and again, I mean, I think they were very smart to do that. I mean, I don't think they were doing that in any like.
And also, Jigglypuff at that point was a meme. Ryan Reynolds has his own marketing. Basically, it's crazy. Ryan Reynolds is one of the few stars where he even if indirectly, basically cuts his own trailers because now he has his own marketing company that part of his contract is that they are hired out for at least part of the marketing campaign of every movie that he does.
Wow.
It's why he buys things like Mint Mobile and Aviation Gym, not only to have the product and that revenue, but also to get the revenue of making his own ads.
Fascinating.
And then can sell those, like, look how successful we were with this, and sell that to bigger brands like Match.com or Facebook.
Crazy.
So yeah, he knows those, and he and his people are so tied into the meme culture, thanks in large part to his involvement with Deadpool and how successful he was able to spin that off. So it was like Jigglypuff has been a meme for 15 years going in the trailer.
Yeah. I am like ready to watch a Ryan Reynolds deep dive right now. But you know,
side episode Ryan Reynolds discussion.
Steve, I think your new career is video essays. Just saying.
It's nothing that would involve me getting attention from people online. I don't want to deal with comment sections.
Fair enough. Yeah,
I don't want to deal
very
with
good reason.
Our comment section. Except for the Team Yap commenters are great.
I know, like we. I'm
delighted anytime I see a Team Yap comment.
Us too. You know, it's I don't want to get on too much of a tangent here, but it is fascinating. Like, and I deal with this with like the other social media platforms we have, and it's like the like anxiety I get thinking about the comments that we receive, or like the amount of likes that we get, and it's just so inextricably linked to just like your personal life
and like that weird middle school part of your brain that will never die.
Exactly. And that is why I hate it. But yeah, so I think let's see what else. There were a few more things. One thing that I wanted to say was I really appreciated this movie, and like when you get to the part of the movie where you realize, oh, these Pokemon are being like experimented on. Yeah. They're being genetically mutated.
Yeah.
Yep.
I'm like, that is so real. Like if Pokemon existed in our society,
100%.
They would be war machines.
They'd be, the Greninjas with the more attack power infused that'd be like everything. The Torterra, oh my God. Yeah. My favorite scene in the movie, by the way.
That was a great scene.
The Rising Ground, and then this is the Torterra Garden.
Yes. Yeah. But like it really, it touches on that without getting too deep.
Yeah.
But it gets close enough where I'm like, oh my God, like if like starting to get the gears turning where it's like, okay, if we had Pokemon in our world, like
this is
100%.
We have like
evil
bomb sniffing dogs and things like that.
Yeah. It's not that far off.
Yeah.
Now we just need to genetically mutate them.
And also like we breed animals in different ways.
True.
I mean, think about the weird Pokemon crossbreeding. I know Pokemon has strongly implied that like all these things are weirdly asexual.
Yes.
And self-reproducing.
There's always like the eggs.
Well, where do the eggs come from?
It's like weirdly asexual unless you put them in with with one of each gender of each other or with a Ditto.
Yeah.
Speaking of Ditto.
Ditto is oh my God, there's a Ditto in this movie. I love it.
Waterhouse Ditto. Yeah.
This
It's a great reveal because it's exactly what you're talking about. Because I was not expecting that to happen when I saw the movie.
I forgot about
rewatching it, and I'm like, it's so clearly she has pink hair, pink gloves, and black dark sunglasses. She is styled to look like Ditto. Yeah.
I completely forgot about there being a Ditto in this movie. Yeah. And then I saw the Bodyguard and I saw the Ditto separately.
Yeah.
And then we get to later on, like, oh, I completely forgot about that. I'm so glad.
I did not put two and two together with that. No, not at all.
Another one of my favorite scenes, the Ditto glitching and morphing from different things.
That was super cool.
Body horror stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really cool. Again, like, okay, they're both wearing sunglasses the whole movie. Why are they wearing sunglasses? Like, is this just typical bad guy trope? Can't see their eyes. Like, they're businessmen, whatever. Yeah. Like, no, it's because they were dittos.
Terrifying, by the way. I forget her name, both actress and the character, but female lead.
Catherine Newton. I don't know the character's name.
Lucy.
Lady journalist.
Thank you. Lucy.
Yeah.
Intern.
Her when the Ditto transformed into her with the eyes.
Yeah. Yep. No, that haunts me.
Yeah.
For a while.
And well, it's so like, I mean, again, with this movie, you are meant to feel resentment, hatred, whatever towards Mewtwo. Because it is strongly implied that this is the bad guy. Mewtwo killed his dad.
That's what they're telling you this whole time.
Exactly.
When they get to the scene of the hologram.
And so, you know, again, like I never go into a movie being like, what's going on here? So it's like, oh yeah, the Mewtwo's the bad guy.
This movie would never lie to me.
Yeah, exactly, right? So then you get to the end and it's like, oh, actually Mewtwo has been being like manipulated this whole time. They're using his powers for evil, like whatever.
Yeah.
I should have expected that. I was not.
I will say I remember because I think it was like it wasn't the first trailer, it was like the second trailer or something, like a couple months before the movie out is when they revealed that Mewtwo was going to be in the movie.
Okay.
And the trailer ended with that shot with the balloon of Pikachu blowing up and through the flames comes Mewtwo, and I gasped. And trailers never make me gasp. And I think part of it was just like there's that this movie does know when to hit the nostalgia button at the right time.
Yes.
Especially for me, because like my knowledge of Pokemon before, you know, extensively playing Pokemon Go with y'all is extended to like the first 3 generations, like mainly the original 150 and then like some of the other, you know, up to like the 300s. So like I was like, yep, dropping Mewtwo in this.
Well, and like that first movie was so so well done, so well received, like
heavy rotation.
So like everybody knows that first movie.
I loved Mew as a kid. I was so excited when I finally got a Mew in Pokemon Go.
And like I mean, again, if you think about Pikachu, Charizard, like Mewtwo is one of those Pokemon that it's like almost if you know Pokemon to some degree, like even like what you were saying, it's like it's just the first generation or whatever, you know Mewtwo.
Yep.
And so I think it was smart for them to base the storyline around Mewtwo and have those callbacks to that first movie where Mewtwo is like in this like lab and is being experimented on and used and like
and like canonizing that to this movie.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Just that, because again, another thing I completely forgot about. I thought this movie was like in its own world, completely originally separate from the existing canon. No, it's exists along with like the Kanto region and all of that.
That's a great question. I never even put that into consideration because obviously I was like, yes, this exists in the world of Pokemon. But it was like, could Ash Ketchum be out there somewhere in this? You know,
probably like an old man by the time of this movie if he's out there. But.
Yeah, because does Pokemon exist in a certain year? Even because I know it's a weird side world that's like it's like our worlds but a little different.
Well, Ash took a year to get all the way back around to Viridian City for his 8th gym, and he was still 10.
Yeah,
well, that's the whole thing where it's like, you know, Ash stays 10, but it's also like you have all these different regions and generations and this and that, and so even though he stays 10, it's like realistically. This is happening over a period of many years. Yeah.
It's the Simpsons problem.
And some of them
technology progress.
Yes, I was about to say, some of these places are way more technologically advanced than others. What's the Simpsons problem?
Well, the Simpsons has been on for so long, and yet the characters perpetually stay the age that now Homer and Marge, the parents, like when they do flashback episodes, the flashbacks to when they were kids was to a time where in our real world, the Simpsons already existed.
Oh my
gosh. The characters of The Simpsons are technically younger than the show The Simpsons.
Wow.
And it's just a weird logic thing where it's like you're either going to accept this or you don't.
Yep.
I know in season 1 when we flash back to them as children, it was the early 70s. But now it's going to be the early to mid 90s.
There are a lot of shows that do that. And it's just to keep, you know, because it's not, you know, I'm thinking of like... I don't know. The only show that I can think of right now is Grey's Anatomy because I've been watching it. But it's like, there's very obvious progression. Yeah. You start as an intern.
Case, you have live action characters, like live action actors who have to age.
And
it's kind of the Marvel problem now.
Yeah.
Right.
So true. They're
in
so
comic
fucking
books,
old.
you can draw Superman to be 30. I know Superman's DC.
You can do however many.
Spider-Man can be perpetually 27 years old. But
the actor you have playing Spider-Man is now like 40 or something like that.
And keeps demanding more money.
Yeah.
You suddenly have to come up with a new Spider-Man.
Yes. Yep. That's so true.
Yeah.
Well, like that. I mean, I do think that they made the right choice with the Pokemon universe to retire Ash.
Yep.
I don't know. I never watched it. I don't know how they went about that. Like, where did he go?
I wanted to ask about that. It's because we are currently in the era where like Ash is kind of done.
He's
now.
not in the TV series, right?
No, he's not. He's not currently in it.
Because I know they made the remake movie I Choose You, and was that their answer? Is like we're now doing sort of a side Ash thing, or are those done now as well?
I don't think I've heard anything about us getting another one. I think the most recent for those was the Coco movie with Zarude.
Okay.
Which I saw, and I thought that was really good. But that was definitely off of that continuity. Like no Misty, no Brock.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know if they've gone any further from there with that one.
Yeah.
I would like to see that, though, because that was a really good movie.
Mm-hmm.
As of Ash in general, I know they had a short mini series at the very end of having him like go back and revisit his old Pokemon and
cute.
all that. I tried to watch some of it, but
Was it too sad?
no, it's not
It's
really
not good?
Yeah.
Oh, what the fuck? Really?
It's all right.
It was obviously clearly something that they just
Well,
like,
it's also
threw
for
out
one, it's
there.
me going back to watch the Pokemon anime that I haven't seen in forever. So yeah, from my memory, it's all right. I don't even think I finished it though, so I might need to finish it to give it a proper.
Yeah.
But so to say is I don't know quite where he's gone off to. I think he's well, I mean, he won everything. Like he's the what was it? There was a Grandmaster tournament thing that was his last foray, and he won that. So he's kind of done it all.
They're like, see you later.
See you later, kid. Grow up, get a job.
So now are there multiple protagonists?
Ash goes on to get an office job.
It's like the freaking Minecraft movie where Steve is working in an office.
Or like our friend, our lead, Justice Smith. I don't remember his character's name in Pokemon in Detective Pikachu.
Oh, yeah, Tim.
And he's like an insurance salesman.
Yes.
He's just doing the reverse of Ash's journey.
Exactly. Yep. So, it is interesting to me, like, thinking about the logistics of the Pokemon world.
Yeah.
And I mean, I think there's so much more that they could do with that, shaping it out and like making it clear, like, oh, it's the same timeline. It's the same, like, Hoenn's over here, Kanto's over here, whatever.
But then if you do stuff like that, Megan is not going to be as engaged as she is when like lady journalist shows up and causes trouble.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Or when, Psyduck explodes, like, it's just, for a movie like this, you have to keep it surface level.
Yep.
Because you have to keep it, but deep enough that longtime fans will enjoy it.
Yeah.
Shallow enough that any old person off the street, and I don't mean old, but just any person off the street can watch this movie and find some enjoyment or entertainment in it.
I think the way they use the Pokemon logistically, like the Mr. Mime scene was in a lot of the trailers, and I think that scene is really delightful.
I loved that scene.
Using the logic and also just like a clear comedic device that will make sense. He is a mime.
Yep.
You're interrogating mime.
And I mean, like that in the games.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes. The way the Psyduck is used, I think, is brilliant. I think Psyduck is the other like big standout.
Yep.
Also one of the better translations because he gets to have feathers and things like that. He looks like a cartoon duck.
Yes.
And I think most of the accessible Pokemon was like, here's a real animal, just a little different. Like my argument has always been Piplup is the cutest Pokemon because penguins are already at maximum cute.
Yep.
And you just give that another 15%.
Make him blue and have big eyes and a big mouth.
Give him sort of a chibi sort of aesthetic and you're good. I'm trying to think of the Greninja stuff is great. I mean, that's clear. It's just like this one looks like a freaking xenomorph. It's a ninja. Yeah. It can do sneaky stuff and hide in shadows and things like that. I'm trying to think, what are some other, because there's a lot of background stuff. Like there's a sign and there's is it a Trico that's a Treco?
Yep, the Trico that's hanging out with like what is
glass.
it? Check-in for a hotel or something. And
that really got me. I was like, this is like, what a nice detail of just having this Pokemon that is a lizard, like a gecko, hanging out with his little pads on the glass.
Whereas a Lickitung, back to your previous point, is harder to translate into our real world.
Yeah, because it's like, what the fuck is that?
Yeah. And I think that's the sort of humor they're leaning into it.
Absolutely.
It was just like, you're either going to be on board with this or you're not.
Totally. And I think that's why they had to introduce that so soon in the movie, because that was like right at the beginning.
And then you can have any old crazy Pokemon you want in the background. It was like Gengar Sure, yeah.
I love the slacking.
I don't know.
Slacking in the background of like
Yeah.
he's at like the bar or something
Yeah.
and he's slumped over like because he's always sleeping, but he's like, okay, he's drunk.
Who are the cute little sugar glider Pokemon?
Is it a Molga?
Olga?
Emolga, yeah. There's a bunch of them just sort of floating around. Just all sorts of, you know.
Well, then they had the like Panchamps or whatever those
Yes.
are.
Yeah.
What is the
They
small
had,
one
they had
called?
a Pancham and a Pangoro.
Yep.
All the Pancham were just climbing around and in the plants behind them.
And then the monkeys, the purple monkeys, Apom.
I thought the Apom, terrifying as they were,
Terrifying.
I thought they looked really good.
Yeah.
And I will just say, like, a lot of time you saw, or at least this one instance I'm thinking about, you saw Pokemon just using moves and just doing things. It wasn't like there was no trainer calling it out. It wasn't announced. These were things just happening. As Pokemon fans, you understand them because it's like, oh, that Apom's probably using Iron Tail or something to that effect. And as a person just watching, it's like, oh, that Pokemon's attacking. Like, you don't need to know
the specifics.
all of it.
And Rob Letterman, who directed this movie, comes from an animation background.
Okay.
Was an animator primarily. I believe this is his first live action movie. And I think that background benefits. It was like, it's good just to have business in the background, little details where you can, keep your animators engaged. It was like, come up with a fun thing for this person to do. And also just like, it helps build out an internal logic that you don't need to fully describe, but if there's a Pokemon with 4 arms, I know it's a Machamp. But like pretending directing traffic,
Right.
I get what the game is here.
And I don't need to know that is a Machamp.
Yeah.
It's like, here's a Pokemon that's humanoid.
That's buff and has 4
I know
arms.
what I'm watching. I know these are Pokemon. Like, I'm here for the ride.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
And that definitely did a really good job with that. I really appreciated that. As a, of course, as a Pokemon fan, I'm like, oh, who's here? Like, who can I see? Like, and, that kept me engaged as well. I loved the.
You're trying to collect them all.
I am, exactly. Trying to collect them all. Yeah. Well, and I was also like, what is the like rhyme or reason here? Rhyme. Behind like what generation Pokemon are they like showing? Like, because there was a mix. And I don't think there was. They were just kind of picking and choosing.
The 2 screeners that I listened to an interview was like, when they got the assignment, I was like, here's the translated script of Detective Pikachu, because I had him localized at one point, and here's the Pokedex. Have fun.
Okay, that is awesome.
And they could kind of pick and choose. It was like, here are the Pokemon that we'll actually incorporate into the plot, and then here's some Pokemon that we'll suggest for the background. And I think even from that point, like, because, you hand in your script and other people take it on, if you're not the director yourself. And, so I think, a lot of, like the special effects team, the director, a lot of people probably had suggestions. It was like, what if we use this Pokemon? What use that one? But whatever Pokemon generation was up to like 2017, I think they had free reign to use whatever they
That's amazing.
wanted.
So, I think that would have been right before.
I do think it leans more towards the original 150 because
they're more well known.
Those are the more well known, and especially generationally, the guys who are working on this movie, that's more in their wheelhouse. But
and a lot of simpler designs too, so probably easier for
like the not Ebola. What were the sugar glider ones? Emolga. Emolga.
Yes.
That's easy to translate. They're cute, they're fluffy, and they're like a thing that we already have.
Right.
Well, and yes, absolutely. And like, the thing about Emolga is it's just like, that's one of the Pikachu clones.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so like,
speaking of someone who fell victim to the first Pikachu clone, Pichu.
Yeah.
I understand the appeal.
Yes. Yeah. Yep. So, I do think it was smart, like what Pokemon they chose. Love the mix between the more recognizable ones from the earlier seasons, whatever the heck you want to call that. Yeah. Generations is what it's actually called. And the newer ones. Like I loved the scene with Bulbasaur and Morlul.
Yeah.
That was so cool.
Yeah.
Super well done, super, super beautiful.
Yeah.
And it's just like, these are like floating mushrooms with eyes, like then you start to get into the like, the vanillites of them all. Like here's an ice cream cone with an eye, but it's still, I didn't notice that they included any Pokemon like that where it was like, okay, here are the weirder kind of
I don't
quote unquote lazy designs because I
am now imagining a beach sequence featuring a bunch of attacking sandy gas.
Now that
would be epic.
I would actually
that
love
would be
that
something
for like a sequel.
Yeah.
You heard it here first.
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers.
It's such a shame. Like I do feel like it is a missed opportunity. Like this could have been a very successful franchise. Yeah. Like you said, the combination of so many factors.
I do think if the pandemic didn't happen, it would be more likely.
Yeah.
But again, it made like 450, it was profitable, but it was not like hugely beyond profitable. It was like, we have to push this forward.
Well, and going back to what you were saying about like the Disney kind of era.
Yeah.
Because I think about it and I was like, I totally forgot that Disney bought Marvel. Yeah. And Marvel, I mean, it was so dominating.
Yeah.
But
then Endgame happened. It was sort of a natural endpoint. A lot of the casual fans said, I'm done. The pandemic happened. They had weird delays. Like, they lost a lot of their stars. And, like, now they're still trying to, like, they're in their last gasp of, like, can we recapture the audience?
And I do think they're...
And I think the answer is no.
They're beating a dead horse here.
They're really trying for it with Doomsday.
Yeah, this next Avengers movie, I
didn't even know there was a new Avengers movie coming out.
There's two coming.
Really?
Well, there's one that they're actively working on, and then their hope is that they'll start the next one soon, immediately thereafter.
See, that was such a prime era for it that it's like...
Yeah.
Sometimes you have to let things go.
They did a thing that nobody else did before. I can't believe I've created a Marvel tangent in a Detective Pikachu. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. But they did a thing that no one else did before. Everyone was like, big success. We're done now.
Yeah.
But in our capitalist society, that doesn't, you're not allowed, you need the expansive growth until the thing just breaks.
Completely dies. Yeah, absolutely. And I do think that Pokemon is starting to get there a little bit. Definitely not to the same degree because it's spread across so many different kind of avenues. Whereas, of course, Marvel is, there's comics and there's movies and there's TV spinoffs and there's this and that.
Like
there's games.
For the average viewer, it's the movies.
It's the movies for sure.
So a lot of people are feeling the superhero like oversaturation or burnout.
Yeah.
And so.
And I don't want to disrupt your point.
No, you're good.
But
I'm pretty much
one of the things I think Pokemon will always have an advantage is that its primary audience is children. And when you're creating these new these very specific genre properties, like your bread and butter is always going to be the kids because you're planting the seed for the next thing.
Right.
One of the reasons that in the rise of the comic book movie, comic book sales have continued to be kind of uneasy at best and floundering at worst, just because you forgot that because there was a certain portion of your audience that grew up and still continued reading comics. So then you made comics more adult.
Yep.
And you completely disrupted the chain of planting the multiple next seeds of your generations. You do not create comic book fans through Spider-Man movies. You create comic book fans by handing Spider-Man to an 8-year-old.
Sure. Absolutely.
And Pokemon always has that entry point with kids.
Yep.
The thing now is that it's at such an expansive point that beyond the aesthetic appeals of the designs of these characters, from like a narrative investment, which, Pokemon has always had a very loose narrative, as we previously mentioned. It's going to be a little harder for a kid to get invested in 1,000 different designs, a near encyclopedic knowledge that they have to have, which you two have gained through a lifetime of study of the scripture of the Pokedex, versus a kid who was like, I got 150 of these things, they can all fit in a poster, and there's a rap song at the end of my cartoon that tells me all its names.
That is so incredibly true. Because I still have, even when I was getting into Pokemon, we were up to Sinnoh. So that's Gen 4. Yeah. That's what? A couple hundred Pokemon?
500 at the most.
That is still reasonable. That is still like, okay, I can work my way backwards now. Yeah. And I can have all of the knowledge. Versus somebody gets into it now. You have
Pokemon.
You have all those Pokemon. You have all these spin-offs. You have, like I already mentioned, you have Mystery Dungeon. You have Ranger. Yeah. You have Snap. You have, the mainline kind of adventuring games. But then you also have Legends. You have the even more spin-offy games like the Arena and Stadium or whatever those are called. And Pokemon Unite. Like, there's just so much. And then not to mention the sheer amount of anime episodes. Like
Yeah.
we're at Naruto level here. Like, I mean, if you want to watch the anime,
If you combine all of the different series
Yeah.
into like one main series,
you will never watch it all.
No. You'll never catch them all.
Unless you
catch
stuck
them
You'll
through it.
never get that final fix.
Unless you were like seriously obsessed with it, which I'm sure some people are, like some kids.
Yeah.
It's just not going to happen to the same degree as when we were growing up.
Yep.
And it's interesting to think about. It makes me kind of sad, honestly.
Well, it's also because my main reference point was like one of my main nerdy things was Star Wars. Technically,
Yep.
still is Star Wars,
Yep.
but like there was a point in time where there were 3 Star Wars movies, and they had a very simple narrative, and there was a lot of background stuff. So in an era where there were only 3 Star Wars movies, and there was a long time until the next Star Wars thing, the nerdy kid could read the Star Wars encyclopedia and learn about
Yeah.
all the background
Yeah.
stuff, but the narrative was still simple.
Yep.
And then you get more movies and more background and
Yep.
more movies and more background, and now you have all these streaming shows
Yep.
with more background stuff. And it was just like, now the simple narrative has become intangible and unwieldy enough that you don't feel that drive to want more, to delve in the minutia.
Yeah, it's so true. Well, and I think, for me, my secondary nerdy thing was always like find a nerdy thing and then read fan fiction about it.
Yes.
Like the whole just like other
Yeah.
leg
Yeah.
of that like sphere of nerdiness,
Yeah.
fan fiction, that's a whole nother rabbit hole that has been around
Absolutely.
since
The beginning.
beginning of
Basically.
any
Since
sort of fandom.
Microsoft Word.
Yeah.
Since
or
any
even like
kind of
like
document.
like zines and
Yeah.
microfiche of like Star Trek and Lord of the Rings and stuff. Like Dungeons and Dragons basically started as Lord of the Rings fan fiction.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
But even like the osmosis knowledge thing was like when you were a nerdy kid and you find another nerdy kid and you both have hyper specific interests, but they're not necessarily the same interests.
Yeah.
Part of your bonding is like, I'm going to give you the info dump
Yes.
of everything I know about this one thing,
Yep.
Yep.
and then you're going to do the same.
Absolutely. That's
Yeah.
so true too.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, and and that, that brings me to like the community aspect of Pokemon and just nerdiness in general, which, 'cause even Chris and I, it's like when it comes to Pokemon, like there are certain things that you keep track of and that you are into more than I am, and vice versa. And with this a massive amount of like, not even just lore, but like avenues, media types, like I don't have to know everything about the trading card game. I don't have to know everything about whatever because Chris is going to tell me,
Yeah.
or because Twitter's going to tell me,
Yeah.
or I'm going to see it on TikTok or whatever. And I do think that really lends itself well to the expansion of all of these universes. But like you said, because there is so much, like using Star Wars as an example.
Yeah.
I've seen maybe one Star Wars movie,
Yeah.
none of the original ones. I think it was the original one with like Adam Driver.
Yeah.
And I have no desire to dive into it because there is so much lore.
Yeah.
There's so much that I need to know about it that the idea is overwhelming.
Yeah. And I used to, when people used to tell me I've never seen Star Wars, I'm like, you should really give it a shot just because of like the cultural significance of it, this, that, and the other thing. It's only 6 movies. And then now we're at a point where people are like, I've never seen Star Wars. And I say, you're better off. I am cursed with this love
Yes.
for the rest of my life.
I get that as a One Piece enjoyer.
Oh, well, One Piece is at a whole other level.
Well, like,
Yeah.
it's I genuinely can't sit there and be like, hey, you should absolutely go watch this show.
Yeah.
Because I 100% agree with the take of it gets really good after like 200 episodes. That's not even a joke. So as much as I do adore One Piece, it is one of, if not my favorite anime of all time.
One Piece is at like a Wheel of Time sort
Yeah,
of strata.
just wait for the One Piece.
Where
They're doing
it's
a remake.
where
so.
it's like people are like, I'm at the quote unquote the end of Netflix. It's finally time for me to take on One Piece.
So this is this is another tangent, and we can wrap this up soon because we could talk about this forever. But like,
Absolutely.
Speaking of Netflix went through such a weird
Pokemon
evolution of like, of course it started with the DVDs. I remember getting the DVDs in the mail, and then when it became more of a streaming platform, they had so much content, so much like that you could watch. It was amazing.
They licensed it all for cheap. Yeah.
And then, you got to the in-between era where Netflix was starting to do their own original stuff, but was
still
losing,
mostly
yes,
the back catalog, but losing it. Like
starting to lose it, because as you kind of transition through that to the more of the original stuff, and then as these streaming platforms diversified,
other places start coming out with their own platforms.
Then you ended up with a Netflix where I wouldn't even open it because I knew there was nothing on there that I wanted to watch.
Yeah.
We've kind of started to go back into a Netflix golden era where there's because they do so many original series and because their original series do really well, I do have a reason to open it other than Grey's Anatomy. But it's fascinating to me. Like, I do miss the culture of movies and TV before the pandemic, because you collect physical media. When I was younger, I used to collect box sets of TV shows. And I have a lot of them. And just like the feeling of being like, oh, I have this thing in my hand.
It's not going to be taken away.
It's not going to be leaving Netflix in 30 days. You know what I'm saying? Like, I am constantly in fear that they're going to take Grey's Anatomy off before I can finish watching the show. But you have it. And I mean, that's the same with like YouTube. Like, we watched Detective Pikachu on my YouTube account. I rented it. I didn't buy it. But if I had bought it, if anything happened to, like, YouTube could just be like, oh, sorry, here you go.
That's
it's
no
gone.
longer on our servers.
Like, what do you mean? I paid $15 for that. But I didn't and that's the same with like Switch games. Like, my biggest regret is not buying the physical copy of Legends Arceus because I've sunk so much time and hours into that game, and it could be gone if my Switch dies.
And you can't move your save profile. Like,
I don't know what the logistics of that is, but
so your save data is on your Switch.
And not the cloud, like your Nintendo account.
Yeah, you can put it in. I believe you can put it onto a cloud, but I believe it is first and foremost with your Switch.
So like, if you lose your Switch, if it breaks, whatever, it's gone.
And gone are the days of
that's what terrifies me about digital media.
I mean, I played GTA 5 when it came out on my Xbox 360, and then years later bought it on my Xbox One. I'm like, I have to start over.
Yeah,
I don't want to do that.
Totally.
Yeah.
Well, that's the same with me. Like, I 100% completed GTA 5 on my PS3.
Yeah.
Then bought it for my PS4. And if I'm thinking about it, like, I don't actually know if I have the physical. I actually do have the physical tape for the PS4.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think about it with PC games too. It's like, what if Steam goes away?
Yeah.
Like, I spent all this money and they could just be gone.
Well, I think for one, there's just some games you'll enjoy so much. I got it. Like, for me, it's Monster Hunter and Xenoblade. Is that I wanted to make damn well sure when Xenoblade 3 came out that I got a physical copy of that, and then when the Xenoblade X Definitive Edition, which I still haven't played, I wanted a physical of that. Yeah. Monster Hunter Wilds, I only caved and bought it digitally because I wanted to play it so damn bad.
Yeah.
And I was on release day. And Monster Hunter is one of my favorite franchises. So I still plan to buy a physical copy of Wilds at some point when I have the chance.
That's sort of
but also instant. Like I want my physical media. I want to own my shit.
Yeah.
Well, this makes me think of our archives because we have everything. We have it on the physical.
Everything
media.
Ties back to CCTV. This is great. This is why
back.
you are a marketing media maven.
This is why we get paid for this.
If you've learned anything from the Pokemon Company, it's about the importance of strong branding.
So true. But so in conversations that we've had about the archives, like we have. Well, it's interesting because in our archives, we have the VHS tapes and we have DVDs. I mean, we have other stuff too, but looking at those too, it's the tapes that are starting to deteriorate. Yeah. It's only a matter of time before the DVDs start to deteriorate.
Because that's the flip side of physical media is that hypothetically, like, disc rot does exist.
Sure.
Especially on these older platforms. Like, there are a lot of CDs from the invention of the CD in the late 70s, early 80s that are just unplayable now.
Yeah.
If you keep them in the right conditions, hypothetically, these things can last for like 150 years, beyond the lifetime of one person.
But if they're just on a shelf in somebody's living room and they're in like Florida or something.
Or the worst, a basement.
In a basement, they're getting moldy. Like we have moldy tapes, whatever. But then you have to think about, even with digitization, I mean, that's why keeping up with current preservation standards are so important. Yeah. It's because MP4 is not going to be the format in 20 years.
Or even the physical drives, like, because films exist as DCPs, digital cinema packets, because you know, it's the movie file, it's also the audio file. You know, if you have captions, you can put all these things onto a hard drive, and all of these files are then being played simultaneous through whatever platform. But I remember I went on the Paramount backlot tour, and they took you into the vaults. It was like, here's all of our films, here's a lot of our stuff saved onto tapes, here are the modern films on DCPs, high level tapes, not like VHS tape, like high level 8-inch tape. And they're talking about, it was like, yeah, we have to boot up the hard drives every now and again, because if they stay dormant for too long, they'll eventually just sort of like become unreadable. But if we boot them up too often, they'll break. So we're constantly trying to figure out what the middle ground is.
It's so fascinating.
If you want anything to live, quote unquote, forever, sculpt out of bronze, basically. That's the only art that's going to like last eons.
Well, and it makes me think of lost media. Like, I mean, we could do a whole episode on lost media. Like, and so the fact, like, you can't play it too much, you can't play it too little. You have to keep up with all these things. Like, oh, it's going to deteriorate. Oh, it's, you know, it's not, like, whatever. It's so complicated.
And then also it takes up physical space. This is what I deal with my Blu-ray. Like, a lot of my stuff is in binders. And I have these big sort of media, like the old CD binders you used to have. I have that, but for 400 discs.
Wow.
I have 2 of those.
Because if you didn't, I mean, you'd have shelves upon shelves.
And I have a small apartment.
I'm sure you'd like that, because it would look cool.
I would love it. Yeah. If I could, here's the thing. I put the things into binders, but then I kept I had to get rid of the cases because that was the purpose of the binders to begin with. But I still have the inserts, the paper inserts, in case if I ever get to the point where it's like, I now have to buy back 800 Blu-ray cases. I'm ready to put them back to their original state.
Someone has a stock of just a bunch of blank cases.
I mean, they do exist, but it would be expensive to buy 800. But yeah, that's sort of the flip side. This is the problem with my brain wanting to catch them all.
I think I think about, like, my brain is complete it all, because like any game I play, I'm like, no, I have to do 100%. Every single mission. I have to do it all. And that, like I said, I 100% completed GTA 5. Did I like doing that? No, but I wanted to 100% complete.
You liked the first like 75%,
probably. But then when I had to like fly under a bunch of bridges and like do all these other weird, stupid shit that count as 100% completing the game, like,
the problem with that game was yoga. I couldn't do that one.
I didn't even realize that was an achievement.
That one broke me, and I had to, because it gives you, like, after a while, if you fail enough times, it's like, all right, just pass.
Oh, that's too funny.
Yeah.
I had to do that.
Well, I used to like playing golf in that game, which is hilarious.
I forgot that was an option.
It was like a yoga mini game.
I remember the yoga. I didn't realize there was an achievement behind it.
Oh, I don't know if I got an achievement.
GTA 6 will be so expansive, there'll be a Pokemon game within it that you can pick up a Switch.
That would be amazing.
Yeah.
Well, I will never get tired of the we got blank before GTA 6.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think that overall,
Detective Pikachu.
This movie that we're here to talk about.
The whole point of this episode. No, this was really great. This was we could keep talking about this for 2 hours. I enjoyed the movie.
Fun movie. Yeah.
I think I'm always going to say that I enjoyed a movie. This is one other thing that I will share, and I think you will appreciate this. Yeah. When I was younger and I would see a movie, I would go on Facebook after and I would write a review for my friends and family. And not once did I, like, the review was not a review. It was, I love this movie so much. Everybody should watch it. Like, this was my favorite part. Like, did not once was there a critical thing said about any movie. That has stuck with me throughout the years. I will always find something. I just enjoy experiencing watching a movie. And so I almost never dislike a movie. I could maybe been like, oh, that was kind of boring or whatever, but like,
we call you an ideal audience member.
And you know what? I'm happy to be that way, because it's just like, again, like, I like going to the movie theater. I like just turning the TV on. If I am not spoiled by something, if I don't guess something, which I, like I said, usually won't, and even if I don't like the movie and there's a plot twist in it, I'm like, holy shit, oh my god, this is great.
I do think it'd be hard to guess that Pikachu is his dad if we're operating on more normal real life logic.
It helps that
it is planted throughout the movie.
There are some scenes where you can start to figure, like, at least when he merges with Mewtwo, like, I should have like gotten it then. It's like the Pikachu is talking
Yeah.
His dad is missing. We never saw his face in these flashbacks. Yeah. It's probably his dad. No, I didn't even think of that. Yeah. So, but no, I thought it was a really enjoyable movie. Again, like I think there was a lot of adult humor, which I really appreciate with these types of movies, but not so much that
not adult in like overly sexual, like overly sort of like raunchy. There's a couple things here and there, but it's just like this is like Ryan Reynolds before we all got sick of him.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it is.
Yeah.
Timeline-wise.
I do. Well, no, literally. But it was like, there was a reason why this is so popular. There was a reason I was so endured. It was like, I could watch 6 movies where Pikachu talks with Ryan Reynolds.
Yes.
I don't know if I feel that way now, but
I certainly don't feel that way now.
But I do still because I forgot about this line. The thing that really made me laugh the hardest is when they're driving to the lab and Pikachu is in the car seat, which is just an adorable image.
Yes.
In the back seat with Psyduck, and it was like, well, you're not the one strapped in a baby seat next to a bomb.
That was amazing. I really appreciate moments like that, and I felt like there was enough of that throughout the whole film.
Yeah.
That really kept me engaged and laughing. And
it also looks great.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful looking movie.
It is.
I'm forgetting what's his name. I'm going to have to. I'm pulling up that Wikipedia, Chris. I told you those would come in handy. John Mattinson, who's one of the cinematographer, the director of photography, who has done a bunch of stuff, really prolific guy, has worked with Ridley Scott a lot. This movie is he didn't shoot Blade Runner, but is very clearly inspired by Blade Runner visually with all the neon and the wet concrete. And it looks great. Shot on 35 millimeter. Special effects done primarily by Weta and a bunch of, there's a million special effects houses that works on these things. Weta's whole thing is they try to create physical stuff for their visual things. So like all the smaller Pokemon you saw, they built models.
Oh, that's amazing.
So they could get the lighting. And the bigger Pokemon was like, we'll build the head and other parts of skin that we have to get the lighting.
Oh, that's so cool.
When you watch the Avatar movies, which are primarily Weta, like any piece of clothing that the Na'vi wears, they build physically and then scan it and put it in all different lighting scenarios so then they can match it later.
That's awesome.
That's one of the reasons Gollum looks so good. And there's a lot of great special effects houses out there, but Weta is at a top tier for a reason.
That's amazing that they were the ones that were doing the Pokemon movie too. When you think about
but Pokemon's huge. That was like
huge.
it would be a
Pokemon
big
money.
As much as it's this silly kitty thing that we all love. It's a big deal.
Totally.
Like this was a big ticket job for everyone involved.
And that's why again I keep coming out of it. It's a shame that it ended there.
I think there will be more, but I think it will have to be worth it for the Pokemon company.
Absolutely.
To make that happen.
And like you said, there's more things that are more profitable for them right now.
So like to a point, I don't even know if we're looking at a sequel with how long it's been.
Oh no.
It could be, we're probably looking at a different type of
totally different movie. Totally. Yeah, or a series, which, I'm fine with, but also again I kind of mourn the loss of continuing the Detective Pikachu series, but at the same time, it's like
weird spin-off stuff that you talked about.
Yeah, exactly.
More just different pockets of this world.
And I would eat it up. So Pokemon Company, if you're listening, please do it because I will give you all my money.
Show us someone else in Rhyme City. Show us someone in a series somewhere else where battles are a thing.
Different city, different culture.
I can tell immediately if they do a series though, a lot of Pokeballs are going to get opened and unleashed off screen.
Yes.
We're not going to see that because it's always that energy comes out, becomes the Pokemon, and if we're going to get a lot of off-screen shots of that.
Probably, yeah. Okay, before we wrap up, we have a very important question for you, Steve.
God.
What is your favorite Pokemon?
Listen, because you guys are the hardcores, and I didn't want to come in with a lame-o basic answer.
Yeah.
But
you only get one.
I have to speak my truth.
Yeah, please.
It's Charmander.
Really?
It's been Charmander my whole life, and I love a lot of the original. But Charmander, besides Pikachu, a lot of the original 150 I loved. Yeah. But it was just Charmander was my guy. My brother had a shiny Charmander original card. I don't know, original, but from that first wave that I lost.
Oh no!
It was a devastating moment for me in my early childhood. I love that guy. I love him so much.
He's a great little guy.
I love that.
There's Lady Charmanders as well. I don't want to be,
Great little guys and gals.
Yeah.
Because you know what? There is so much, like, people get so much shit for, like, oh, Pikachu's my favorite, Charizard's my favorite.
Yeah,
like,
for liking the popular pick.
Like, no.
It's popular
Speak your
for a
truth.
reason.
Listen, it was one of the original 2.
It stuck with you.
For a reason.
Yeah.
Well, actually, no, there were original because the green did exist in Japan. Just green never just came to America. See, I know enough about Pokemon that I know things like that.
Yes.
But, yeah, I love Charmander.
Excellent choice.
Amazing. Amazing.
And Charmander's so cute in the
He's
movie.
very cute.
His tail is on fire.
His tail's on
His
fire.
lore is cute too, like, and kind of sad,
Kind of.
Yeah.
Yeah.
which, you know,
I did love the Charmander because there was a Charmander I believe in the movie that was being used like with a walk.
Yeah, there's a couple Charmanders. The Charmander, unlike Bulbasaur, doesn't have like a big showcasing scene.
Right.
Unlike Bulbasaur, the Bulbasaur scene is fantastic.
it's
Sure, you were
fascinating that
happy
they
about
did. Oh, I love Bulbasaur. Bulbasaur's
Yeah.
my favorite starter.
Bulbasaur was the first Pokemon I caught in Pokemon Go, though. So
Okay.
I still have my first Bulbasaur that I caught in Pokemon Go.
I'm glad you still have him.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting the choices they made with like what of the main ones they wanted to like feature. This is like why Bulbasaur, but it's like they're in the forest.
Yeah.
Like okay, like all right.
Yeah.
So, Steve, thank you so much.
Thank you all
Thank
for
you so
having
much
me.
for
This is
joining.
fascinating.
This is the highlight of my week.
You are going to next time we do another Pokemon movie review. We would love to have you
That would be
because I
great.
think I love the extra context and of these movies, but also just like love your mind. Like
Yes.
there's a lot that came up here where it's just like that makes so much sense and like provides so many extra layers to this that was awesome. So.
I love both of your minds. Team Yap is the best show we produce. I know we do a lot for like civic health and
Yeah,
things like
yeah.
that, but
Well, it's important.
Team
you know.
Yap all the way.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and wish we had more people come in to do stuff like this because it's just fun. It's cool.
Can definitely
You
look
can
at
probably just
more
hop around the
guests.
staff and see what
Yeah.
see what
Sure.
happens.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, Chris, do you want to send us off?
Yeah, Steve, thank you so much again for joining us. Been a wonderful time back at the Yap, and hopefully we'll see you again soon for another exciting episode. Next up will be 19. Nothing in mind at the moment.
Almost to the big 2-0.
Almost to the big 2-0.
Year of Yap.
I mean-
Year of Yap. Year of Yap.
Well, I mean, every 5 episodes so far has been some sort of visual
Live
special
action.
episode, so
We're gonna have to do something.
maybe we'll
fun
think
then.
about something special.
Yep. So stay tuned for that. We're excited.
And yeah, we have been your co-hosts. This has been the Yap, and as always, we'll catch you next time.